You are listening to Analog Spectrum. Who the hell do these guys think they are?
All right, hello everybody. I forget what podcast we're in now. This has got to be 6.
What, 6? Yeah, 6.
Yeah,
I think
6.
So. Yeah.
And
are we actually going to keep track of this?
Not. We're gonna have to give up on it after a little while, aren't we?
I think so.
I hope we stay with it so long that we have to give up on it.
Yeah, right.
That would be a goal.
Exactly.
But from one of my recommendations from a listener, this is Tony. I am one of the individuals in this podcast.
That was a kind of a lame introduction.
God, it's horrible.
I gotta tell you.
I had a joke loaded, but it didn't. It got stuck.
Okay. Fair enough. Misfire. Yeah, and I'm Doug, and
right.
This is our podcast where we talk about pretty much anything we freaking want to. So
right.
I was telling somebody about the podcast the other day, and I hate to steal this because it feels like it's stolen because it's so original, but it's kind of like the Seinfeld thing. It's about nothing.
Right.
I mean, it's about something, but there's no like, okay, we're a political podcast or we're a music podcast or whatever. It's about whatever we feel like talking about, really.
Right.
So, some episodes you might like and some episodes you might go like, click, I'm
right.
going to something else.
Yeah. And even though I think we bring a lot of age, exposure to it, like we've seen things, we're not particularly educated in a lot of the topics we're going to talk about, so we're not experts.
Lord knows that's the truth.
I do listen occasionally, like we've talked about. I do watch a lot of videos on YouTube, and some of them are philosophy videos, and those guys will talk about things, and I'm like, oh my God, the way they phrase this and put it together, I can only wish to be that level.
I think they have, like, if you look at, I don't want to throw any names out, but if you look at some of those guys, I mean, they have teams of people that research stuff for them.
Certainly.
You and I have jobs.
Right.
And so we're doing all of this on our off time, so I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time researching.
No, and honestly, for the podcast we've done, I try to research. I do some research, but
yeah, you spend some time, but not. I mean, those guys dig. They dig,
of course,
and that's why their stuff sometimes is really interesting. But
yeah,
I think kind of to what you were saying a minute ago, our stuff is going to be interesting because of the individual perspective. We're similar but different, and and I think that you and I are kind of. Yeah, I don't know. We're all the same, I guess, in one way or another. But
that's beautiful.
I know. This is totally lame. But I was going to say is like one of the things that I find kind of unique about you and I is that we do have that baby boomer kind of outlook, but we also we're adopters of modern technology. We're not scared of that, and so we embrace that and always looking for new, cool, fun stuff. But at the same time, we understand traditional stuff and the value that brings. So I think that's kind of one of the unique things.
Well, that honestly, that's kind of even though the name of our podcast is cheesy, that is kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, that's where it came from. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So,
well, let's get going here.
Yeah. So what's today all about?
What we're going to talk about today is places in the United States that we would like to visit or we recommend you visit.
Okay.
All
right. And I don't remember who came up with this, but
you did.
Oh, was it me?
Yep.
Yeah. My thought was that if you take the average American citizen, I think Tony and I have traveled extensively compared to the average American.
I'd agree. Military, though, plays a lot to that.
It does, yeah, and that definitely played into it. But the fact that there's a lot of people that have been in the military, and I talk to them all the time, but a lot of them were only in 4 years. So they got shipped off from their hometown, and some of them went to Japan or Germany or whatever, but they had a very limited experience there, and then they came home back to their hometown, and then they might have gone on vacation to Florida or something. But you and I have traveled a lot,
right? And to interject something there too, because both of us were young, clearly, when we joined, and I remember like the first few times I had an opportunity to go outside the United States as a brand new person in the military. It was all about like, and I was in a seagoing service, so we'd pull in and rather than go like, oh my gosh, I think I'll go visit the ruins on this island. It was just like I'm gonna get fucked up with the aggressive. So it wasn't even like I went to Barbados. It was like I went to whatever bar.
Yes.
That most represented what a bar would be like in the United States in Barbados.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like later on. Probably when I was still in, and I was in my 30s, and I was like, "Hey, we're going to pull into XYZ port," and people would be like, "Hey, man, let's go get fucked up," and I'd be like, "I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
jump on this tour bus with all these 68-year-old people.
Exactly. Yeah. It's strange because that happened to me a little bit earlier than that. Yeah, I just got tired of spending my whole paycheck on beer and stupid stuff, and next thing you know, you're back out at sea and you're broke, and all you saw was the inside of the bar and face plant at the beach or something. But
yeah, and I think you in the military, you traveled a lot more. Your job had you more.
Yeah, I was at sea a lot more. But but even beyond that, man, I like to travel. And like you said, getting older, you actually can afford to do it.
Right.
And actually go see stuff. And super cool. But we'll save some of that international stuff for other episodes. Because Tony and I went on. I'll just give a little bit of a giveaway. We went on a safari a few years ago.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Us and our spouses, and that's going to be a whole episode talking about that.
Yeah, we could do one about the trip and one about future plans for trips.
Yeah, because we got a future plan. So
right.
Okay, so U.S. destinations. Gosh, man, where to start? Okay, let me start because I lived on the West Coast for a while, and I would say if you want to see one of the most beautiful parts of the United States, the Pacific Coast Highway. North of LA, you go up to Ventura County, and then head to PCH Highway 1 straight up the coast all the way to San Francisco, even north of San Francisco. So between Ventura and San Francisco, you're hugging the coast the whole way, and it's that very stereotypical kind of scene that you see, the rocky shoreline, and you're driving alongside of a cliff, and the ocean is bashing the rocks below. But man, it is just spectacular. It is just spectacular. So if you haven't done that, that is a very much a worthwhile trip.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been along the Pacific Coast, so and like you said, it's beautiful. And I will tell you, I did approach this a little differently. I was thinking about places I wanted to go that I haven't been yet.
Yeah, let's hear it, man. It's no rules.
Well, this does dovetail into what you just talked about. That all the places I kept thinking of, and maybe this makes sense because of where our country, but I all kind of were around road trips. I've always wanted to drive Route 66.
Yeah,
I've never. I've driven very small sections of it, and not that I don't want to just get on the road and drive. I want to see what it's connected to.
Okay, yeah. So what made it so famous or popular or whatever?
Yeah, well, and because we've talked about this, because of this podcast even exists, I'm just a fan of nostalgia, and that just seems to be what it's all about. And I think it would be a bit of an adventure because big chunks of it are now missing, or they're it's all
freeway.
You have to kind of figure your own route. I did look online. There are web pages that cater to those individuals that want to drive the route.
Man, I wish you were a motorcycle guy. Because I tell you, that's a bucket list motorcycle ride.
I bet,
especially for the guys who ride the dual sport bikes, because you can do some of the off road stuff along there as well.
Fun. Yeah. I don't ride motorcycles. I do get the appeal though, only because of other things I do. That when you're driving in a car, there you have the windshield and you're kind of contained within a box as you travel. But when you're on a two-wheeled vehicle, you're kind of a part of the environment. So
yeah, it's great, man. You can feel the temperature change, smell the smells.
Right.
Sometimes they're not good smells, but it's part of the experience. I think it's great.
Yeah, I was on a bike ride yesterday, and it's funny you mentioned that, because all through the ride, I'd be like, I must be riding by a dumpster. I'm probably riding by a dumpster right now.
I'm not going to look up and see the dumpster.
I think I'm somewhere in close proximity to a porta potty. Yeah. I don't know where, but it is close by. I can tell. And that must have happened. It seemed to happen a lot yesterday, where I'd just be out in the middle on some road.
Yeah.
And I was like, somebody's got a porta potty nearby.
Yeah. Well, living out here, man, you must also get the dead deer on the side of the road. That's I swear, sometimes driving up and down the road around here, you think it's like a carcass fest, man.
And as everybody knows, whenever you listen to this, the whole country is in a heat wave, so smells and heat hand in hand.
Yeah, so.
But the whole thing with the driving the Route 66. I do, and this is how OCD I am. I do have a list of what states I visited and what states I haven't visited.
Do you?
Yeah, because I do want to visit all 50, and and a big chunk of them are along the route.
Okay.
And so, because I've never been to Illinois. I have been to I forget if it goes, but it kind of runs down through Illinois, through the central part of the country, which I have been to. It does run through Texas and through the Southwest, but I've never been to Illinois, never been to Chicago.
Okay.
But then again, when you look at the maps of this route on wherever, like a web page, it's not clean and easy. Even if you use resources, it's
broken up.
It's a bit, and that appeals to me too.
Yeah, no, that's fun. The navigation part. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so Route 66, that's cool. Mount Rushmore, you ever been to Mount Rushmore?
No.
Oh man, it's cool, and it's weird because it's so cliche. It is like, oh yeah, Mount Rushmore, Grand Canyon, but when you actually literally go to these places, now you can see why they're so popular. You've been to the Grand Canyon?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so you know that. Like, for the first time you see that, it's weird, man. I tell people this that haven't been. If you drive up from the south, you go through Flagstaff.
Beautiful city, by the way.
Yeah, and then as you're headed towards the Grand Canyon, it's flat. It's like, wait a minute, how can there be a Grand Canyon? It's like there's nothing here. It's like flat desert.
Right.
And you pull into, you pay your exorbitant fee, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you pull into the parking lot and you walk up, and then all of a sudden it kind of reveals itself, and you're like, holy crap, that's a big canyon.
That's the damn truth with the Grand Canyon. If I would. It would be hard if somebody said to me, they like you were saying, that individual that never left Birmingham, Alabama, where's the first place I should go? I would probably say the Grand Canyon, only for that impact.
Yeah.
Because I've never been to the South Rim, but I've been to the North Rim a couple times,
same.
And I know the very first time I went there, the North Rim, you drive, same thing, you go up through Flagstaff, and there's some driving you do to get there, and you do get kind of glimpses of a canyon, but then you end up like traveling farther north of the canyon, you can't actually see the canyon, and then you make a left and you start driving through a lot of, even though it's in the desert, this particular area is very wooded. The time, this was probably like 15 or 20 years ago, there'd been a forest fire, but still. It was pretty well maintained, and then you end up in the lodge, and you're still in this big wooded area, and you walk down to the canyon, and the first time you see it, you just cannot believe there is a place like that on Earth.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's awe-inspiring.
It takes
crazy.
It sounds cliche as shit, but it takes your breath away. And again, I am not somebody who wants to lean heavy on the drama.
Yeah.
It is awe-inspiring.
It is, yeah. And that's how I felt about Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And only because it's man-made. You know? And it's like, God dang. Those things are huge, man. And it is fascinating to think that somebody carved that shit out of a giant rock on the side of a mountain.
Let me ask you this. Could it get made today?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Let's not go into there. You're starting to wade into dangerous political territory.
Well, even politics aside, I don't think we have an interest in our country to make those kinds of things.
I think that turns right into a political discussion. Which, by the way, I was going to say, I wanted to interject this at some point, and now seems like a good point. Tony and I are specifically not talking politics. We avoid it on purpose because. If you want to listen to the latest, greatest political whatever, there's millions of podcasts and YouTube videos. You can go and watch that. We wanted this to be sort of non-political, so
my political beliefs don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so.
So sometimes you'll hear us do that. We'll just go hit the brakes, avoid, and go, and that's on purpose, just so you know. So, so Mount Rushmore, that'd be one that I would recommend.
Yeah, and kind of staying in that vein of the national treasures kind of stuff. I've made a lot of trips. Me and my wife have made a lot of trips to Big Bend, and I would highly recommend that to people too.
Texas, for people who don't know.
Yeah, well, it is in the Big Bend of Texas, so it wasn't really well thought out. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward name, but it is. I think I've heard. I don't know for a fact, but it is the least visited national park in the nation.
I would say that.
Yeah. I
would believe that.
Yeah, because it's so hard to get to.
Yeah.
And unless you get a campsite or a room at the lodge or whatever there's not a lot of places to stay near it.
Sleeping in your car.
Yeah. We've done Airbnbs. We made probably 6 trips there now, and at each time we were like, well, we'll stay in like Marfa, that's close, and it's still like a 5-hour drive. Oh, we'll stay in Marathon. That's close, and it's still like a 3.5-hour drive. It wasn't until we finally were like, we're going to just get an Airbnb in Terlingua. And Terlingua sits right on the outside of the park. Okay. And that was pretty awesome. I mean, Terlingua is like a town, ghost town. Originally, I think it would either mine copper or something. It's kind of been taken over by, it's a throwback to the 60s. So there's a lot of hippies there. And there's a great restaurant, very, very ghost towny. Okay, and so we stayed there. Cool, yeah. It is very cool. And they do a chili cook-off every year in Terlingua. We went there last year for the cook-off. I was like, oh, this place is going to be so crowded and everything. No, it's just too damn far away from everywhere. I mean, even one of the funny stories we like to tell is when we went with two of our other friends from Seattle, and when you pulled up to the gate for the cook-off, they just gave you shots of tequila. I know, right?
Nice.
I know. They're like, okay, welcome to the cook-off. Here's some Jose Cuervo. It's like, well, my Jose Cuervo. Let's be. Normally, I wouldn't shampoo one of my dogs with that stuff, but.
Jeez, man. Okay.
It's good.
So we've established Tony doesn't like tequila.
I do like tequila. I don't like Jose Cuervo.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's barely tequila, but it's good. It's good on margarita. But anyway, but the nice thing about Big Bend is I always kind of joke that especially if you come in from the northern part near Marathon, you're driving in, and you're like, this is just the most. This is not appealing desert. And there's a moment like where you'll pass the Big Bend sign. You're entering Big Bend, and suddenly it just becomes like not Grand Canyon awe-inspiring, but quite beautiful. And you're like, they knew exactly where the park line should be. They're like, okay, left of this is ugly, right of this is beautiful. This is the park line. Wow. And the park itself is just, there's all sorts of things you'll see that are amazing. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's one of the places that I haven't been. So
we'll go.
I've been to a lot of national parks, which brings me to my next recommendation, which is Yosemite.
Yeah, you and I have been together.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, that is just a mind-blowing experience, right. Especially if you come up from the south and you take all the beautiful drives, along, and it's wooded and obviously pine trees and all that stuff, and it's pretty. It's really pretty. And then you come to the one point where you drive through a tunnel. And then you exit that tunnel, and you get that very classic. They actually call it the tunnel view, where you can see El Capitan in front of you and Yosemite Valley stretching out, Half Dome over on your right, and it's just like, oh my gosh!
Yeah.
We thought the last 45-minute drive was pretty, and then all of a sudden you see that, and you're like, holy crap!
Right.
And again, it's like the Grand Canyon. I mean, clearly we live in an age where most people have at least seen photographs.
Right.
But when you see it in real life, the scale is just really takes your breath away.
Right.
So it's worth it.
Yeah, when we went, the one thing about El Cap, you get there and you park in that parking lot, and regrettably, the nature of a human being is we find something that's beautiful and then we just fuck it up.
We jack it up.
Jack it up. So now they got El Cap and they got that parking lot that's always filled. John Krakauer has a book, Eiger Dreams, where he talks about climbing El Cap, and it's the first part of that chapter on El Cap is pretty funny. But he's talking about how the climbers are all just a bunch of anarchic in the campsite. But anyway, but you get to that lot and you look up at El Cap. And even standing next to it, you really can't appreciate how grand it is, how big it is.
How big it really is.
And then somebody says, hey, you look up there, that crack, there's a guy climbing. And you're like, what? And you pull up binoculars. And even through the binoculars, they look like ants.
Specks,
yeah, they look like ants on the ground.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy fuck. That thing is...
It's almost unfathomably big.
It is.
Crazy.
And it's the sheer sheet of granite. And I know most people listening to this have seen pictures of it.
Right.
I'm not saying anything. They're like, what is this El Cap? But the sheer sheet of granite. And still you're like, well, how big is it really?
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So
I don't even know. What is it, like 1,500 feet or something?
I don't even know. I don't even know. It's big.
Should probably look it up.
I could. Well, next podcast.
Yeah. And then the other cool thing about Yosemite is if you like to hike, there is unlimited hiking. Like you can hike really super easy, well-traveled trails all the way up to freaking climbing El Cap if you want, you know. I did Half Dome, and it was freaking awesome. So this is the only park that I've been to as many times as you've been to, Big Bend. But there's a hike where you walk up past a place called Vernal Falls, and they call it the Mist Trail. And there's steps that are carved into the granite. So it's literally like a stair stepper, and you're walking up these steps. And there's a waterfall to your left that's just raging in the spring. I mean, it's just raging. And it puts out all of this mist from hitting the rocks, and you get soaked. You get literally soaked to the bone. And then when you climb up the top, it takes probably from the bottom of the stairs to the top, probably takes about an hour and 15 minutes. But once you get to the top, it's beautiful, sunshine. We used to do is go and just get wet. Some people wear ponchos and all that stuff. We just went, and we'd get all wet and frozen. And then by the time you get up to the top, because it's like at 8,000 feet, and you get up there and then you just lay out in the sun and dry out, have lunch, whatever. So that's just one of many, many, many things to do there.
And also, I did look it up, 3,000 feet from base to summit.
Shit.
3,000
and it's
feet.
straight up. It is straight up.
Well, and again, that's, three 100-story buildings stacked one right on top of the other.
Yeah.
Think about,
Yeah, your tallest building that you can think of.
Yeah, it's the tallest building you think of.
Yeah.
Three of
Times
those.
three, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's obviously pretty loose, but
Yeah.
but that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, but
anyway, yeah, so Yosemite is very, very high on the list.
yeah, and I've never been to Yellowstone.
Me neither. We lived in Colorado for a little while, and it was close.
Right.
As perspective, close. But I wanted to go, and then we never did. We never did. So we're gonna have to make that a road trip.
I think so. And this is kind of turning into a national park perspective, but that says a lot.
Yeah.
But because I've been to a lot of parks on the East Coast. There's a lot of them. But I've been to like the Smokies, and I've been to like Shenandoah because I lived out in Virginia. But and on that note, just another thing I would like to do with my wife is drive. You mentioned driving the West Coast. I think driving the East Coast, because you get kind of that there's a dichotomy there between the two coasts in our country, and they're so different. But all that kind of when you get up towards New England, and you were stationed up there.
Yeah, I was stationed in Connecticut.
Yeah, and it for what it's worth, it's beautiful up there too, especially in the fall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. Yeah, I'll stay away from that. But yeah, it's got its own beauty, especially when you get north of New York. Yeah. And Maine. Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, I've never been to Maine.
Never
been to Maine.
It is just spectacular. And again, this is for people who like outdoors and nature. If you're totally a city person, you might not like it. You might think it's too much bugs or whatever.
I don't know, yeah.
You don't get cell service, whatever, that kind of thing. But if you like nature, that's definitely. Well, speaking of that, we're talking about doing the road trip to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
My next on my list is someplace you and I have both lived, and that's the Florida Keys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you have not experienced the Florida Keys, you need to. It is. I don't know, man. It's sort of like a subculture in the United States. It's not. It's not like any place else I've ever been. It really isn't. The attitude of the people,
right? The
weather, the scenery. I mean, it's just.
Well, we've talked about that. That there's Florida. Well, Florida itself. Shit! I hit the mic. Sorry. Cut. We're starting over. The Florida itself. It's a lot like Texas too, or some other states where, California, where there's clear delineations between, like Texas. Using Texas as an example, there's the Panhandle and there's the east, the eastern part, whatever, pine forest. But Florida's got, their Panhandle, and that's there's certain type of people that live there. You've got kind of that central part, and you got the Keys.
Yep.
Yeah, and Doug and I both lived in the Keys. And, if you've never been down to the Keys, like the moment you drive onto the Keys, suddenly there's like this overwhelming sense of relaxation. You've been there. You've gotten there,
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I never really got like your vibe when you were there, like what you thought of the Keys.
Well, it's hard because I grew up in Florida.
Right.
And I used to go down to the Keys in the 70s
Right.
when 7 Mile Bridge was one small 2-lane bridge.
Wow.
And my dad had I want to say it was a 1968 Econoline window van. And that's what we used to go down there in. And
The candy wagon.
yeah, this thing was a piece of shit, man.
I bet.
Oh gosh, but that road was so narrow. So when I say 7 Mile Bridge, there literally is a bridge that's 7 miles long from one key to the next, and that was so narrow back in this old rickety wooden thing. But you would click mirrors sometimes when you go by another wide vehicle.
Oh my God.
Your mirrors would click. I mean, back in the day, you were going 40 miles an hour, so it wasn't.
But still,
it was, yeah, like nowadays, people running 65, 70.
And that bridge still exists, but it's not used for auto traffic.
Yeah, they blew part of it up, but. But anyway, so I have that perspective from being a kid, and we used to go down there. And when you first get into Key West, on the right-hand side, there's a Holiday Inn, and that's where we used to stay all the time. And I would swim that lagoon and snorkel. I mean, I don't know what the hell my dad ever did down there. He went fishing and stuff like that, but he could have been a drug dealer for all I know. I had no idea. I was a kid.
Well, we do a few.
Yeah. I just went down there and was sure I'll go to the Keys and go swimming.
Yeah.
But then when you and I were there, that was in the 90s, and it had changed a lot. It had really changed. So I enjoyed the nostalgic part of it that I felt from being there from when I was a kid. I loved the water, loved the atmosphere.
And the water is beautiful.
It's crystal.
There.
Yeah, it's crystal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but I didn't like the crazy tourist drunk thing. That's what part I didn't like about the Key West itself. But yeah, all the water sports, snorkeling, scuba diving, sailing, all that stuff was great. I liked it.
People, because when I was stationed there, people would ask me. I recently had somebody ask me, "Well, we're going to the Keys. What would you recommend? You live there. What would you recommend?" And I was like, "Well, you can snorkel, you can scuba, and you can fish. Anything else? You can get drunk.
Yeah, you can do ball crawl."
What about restaurants? I don't know. Everybody's going to serve key lime pie and conch chowder.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah,
Seafood. Seafood's good.
That's the other thing. When you and I were down there was a few fast food places, but the local city council kept a lot of those big chains out of there.
Right.
And then that's not the same anymore.
No.
Yeah, I think when you and I were down there, they let a TGI Fridays in or something.
Yes.
And then the floodgates opened.
Well.
Yeah, and that was it.
I've recently been back. I went back this year, and I went down to Key West, and it was a real quick. We were actually staying in Marathon, and it was a real quick in and out. Just went down to Key West, checked it out, and came back. And It seemed like it was very crowded, and that could have just been time of the year or whatever. But I couldn't really tell if it was like, I just don't remember it being this crowded, or if it had gotten more crowded. But I don't think I was big on the appeal when I was there. I didn't go out and hang in the touristy areas, and so forth.
Well, we worked too. I mean, we had jobs.
Oh, we still had. But you talk about, because you were stationed there in the 80s too, and I still tell some of the stories you tell about, like the difference between the 80s and the 90s. I say, well, when my friend was stationed there, blah blah blah. Again, maybe for another podcast. Yeah, but it was funny. It's some funny stuff. Anyway,
but it's a great place to visit. It really is. It's a cool experience.
Great.
Well, what else you got?
I got nothing else. I think we've been talking for a bit too. We've been talking for. We could probably keep this one a little shorter for a change.
Okay, I'm going to throw one more out.
Please do.
Because this shocked me. I moved. So my wife and I lived in California for a while, and then we moved to Colorado, and we moved to a little town called Woodland Park, and it's just west of Colorado Springs. And it's a beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been to Colorado. It's flat, right? Starting in Missouri, all the way across. You got the plains, right? And it's dead flat. And then when you get to Colorado Springs and you look west, you literally see a mountain range. And that's it. You start the Rockies right there. So we lived 17 miles from Colorado Springs, and that was at about 6,000 feet. And we were at 9,000 feet. So, I mean, you climb quick and you're in the mountains. So anyway, as I said, I'm a motorcycle guy, and we used to like doing motorcycle trips. And my buddy showed me this little town out there called U.S.A. and it's named after Indian chief from back in the day. And I swear, Tony, you come into this place. I mean, everything around you is gorgeous. You're literally in the stereotypical environment that you would think you were in the Rocky Mountains, and you're driving along this place they call the $1 Million Highway. Real curvy, real mountainy, snowy, all that stuff. And then you get into this tiny little town, and it's called U.S.A, and you would swear you're in Switzerland.
Wow.
I mean, the mountains literally surround this place, and they go straight up around this little town, and everything out there has some sort of history of mining. That's where the whole gold rush and all that sort of stuff started. Lots of silver, and they still do a lot of mining out there. But U.S.A, California, or Colorado, and it's spelled U-R-A-Y.
Wow, yeah.
And it's a real small little place, but it's just not far from Durango as well.
Now you're going to get the word out, and then we're going to fuck it up.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's people already know. I mean, it's kind of like on a route that people go on, and it's expensive to stay there,
right?
Because they're so limited. But to stop for lunch or something on your way through like Durango or whatever, it is literally one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
You know, and I was going to end it there, but only because I feel it's very important for me to one up you.
Go for it. Hold on. Let me move to the back seat.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, your story was great, but here's one that's better.
Yeah, here's one.
No, only because you mentioned the drive. Again, I was in the military, and I did a cruise. The ship pulled into Seattle, and at the time, my brother lived in Seattle, and we were, he was. I got to show you. We're gonna go out and just hang out. And we did a drive, and it's called the Cascade Loop. And you go north a little ways out of Seattle, and you take this route that goes up through the Cascade Mountains and down over into the Columbia River Valley, and then down through the Columbia River Valley back into Seattle. And that would be something I would recommend to anybody that goes to Seattle. You have to loop. Yeah, because
didn't we go there when we came to visit you up there?
Yeah, I probably took you on that. I probably did take you on that. And the reason it's one of the reasons it has a very important place in my heart is it really was. I ended up moving back to Seattle, and that's one of the reasons why. Most of the places I'd lived were not. Didn't have that level of beauty, and actually see something that was that beautiful,
right?
And the idea of being surrounded by that and being able to
makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does. People that live up there or live like in California, and especially in the Northern California area along the coast. I know I took a trip to San Jose a while back, a business trip, and again, me and my wife went, and we took a drive to the coast. And
we met you for lunch when you guys came down. Remember that?
Yeah,
we went to lunch.
Yeah, and it was yes, that was a lot. And San Jose's in San Jose. The people move there and they mess it all up. But
yeah, it's massively crowded now.
Yeah, and expensive.
Off the hook.
Yeah, restaurant was nice, but but the coast, going over to the coast, walking down the coast, it's beautiful. So
yeah, go south from there, and it's just because there's nothing there along that coast. It's spectacular. So.
Yeah. So.
Anyway, all right. Well, we'll. I think it's a good place to end it. You can one up me. That's fine, and then we'll start talking next.
So have you been to the moon?
Yeah,
dude. I did a drive on the moon, and it was
Mr. Armstrong.
A little barren.
Yeah,
but,
right. Wow.
Views.
Well, yeah, the moon's okay for the the cheap poor tourists. I went to Mars. So I'm just saying.
Mars. That's pretty.
I accidentally left. Yeah, I accidentally left a little ball of string there, and apparently they found it recently. So I don't know.
Did you go to Pretentious Valley?
Yeah, no, I stopped at Asshole Hotel. That's where I met you.
All right. Well, before we end this, you listeners out there, thanks a million for spending time with us. I know we have some listeners, and I've received some feedback, some of it optimistic and encouraging, and that really does mean a lot to me and Doug. We're always looking for ideas, and we're happy to answer questions or maybe just hear from you. You can email us at analogspectrum, and that's all one word, analogspectrum@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to send us a tweet, same, Analog Spectrum. I don't tweet, but I do check our Twitter on occasion. And there's a Facebook group I started, so if you search out Analog Spectrum, you can find it. Also, whatever platform you're listening on, please consider leaving us a positive review and maybe follow us. And again, positive review would be great. If you leave us a negative review, why did you listen to this all the way through? I don't get it. and then so yeah, we're not too worried about building a huge audience, but it'd be nice to get this out there to as many friends and family as possible. So that's all I got.
That's it, man. See you next time.
Have a good one. Bye.